Hello again everyone, it's me, Matt. Hope you're having a great day. We are talking about armoured scout cars. That's something that I'm normally not talking about on this channel, very rarely anyway. But today I thought I'd talk about it because it does have obviously some key features that I do thoroughly enjoy. It has the beautiful 30mm rod and cannon, which is something of which I'm very used to, being on the Warrior system that I've operated with in the British Army. Of course, it is British, so again, that kind of relates back to my British Army service. And also, it's just bloody cute. I feel like of all the vehicles out there, this thing is just like a baby puppy that requires certain amounts of attention and love. We are talking about the FV721 Fox, the British Army Armoured Scout Car and Combat Reconnaissance Vehicle, which is a wheeled vehicle, which is really not something we talk very often about on the channel, but it really does deserve some appreciation and some love, because I feel like the Scout Armoured Car world really doesn't get much attention, really, and it needs to. So, the four-wheeled FV721 Fox Combat Vehicle Reconnaissance Wheeled is one of the classic British reconnaissance vehicles from the 70s. It is very fast and manoeuvrable, and the Fox boasted blazing speed and excellent scouting capabilities for its time. The Fox CVRW, as it was known, was born in the early 1960s as a complementary vehicle to the CVRT, or Combat Vehicle Reconnaissance Tracked series, that I've also done a video on if you wish to go check out, of the Scorpion and Scimitar tracked reconnaissance vehicles. This came from a result of the FVRDE, or Fighting Vehicle Research and Development Establishment Program, to replace the aging Alvis Saladin. The British Army was perfectly happy with tracked vehicles for reconnaissance at that time, but it was also recognised the multitude of theatres of operation that the British could be deployed to, some of which favoured actually wheeled vehicles. Actual development of the Fox began in 1965, with 15 prototype vehicles being built between November 1967 and April 1969. The first trials took place in 1968, and the vehicle was first publicly mentioned October 1969. Giggity. The military placed an order for mass production at the Royal Ordnance Factory in Leeds, and mass production of the Fox began in 1972 to 1973. The Fox was based on the older Ferret armoured car, which is very renowned for its time also, which production ended of that vehicle in 1971. It was an older design, but could be seen in the hull straight away. The crew consisted of 3 men. The vehicle weighed 6,120 kilograms, and its combat weight was pretty close to that. It was mostly made of aluminum or aluminium, and fairly lightweight vehicle considering what it was actually hosting, which was the 30mm gun. Being that it was a reconnaissance vehicle, being small and nimble was key, and its following dimensions allowed it to do so. Its total length was an impressive 5.8 meters including the gun. The hull length itself was only 4.22 meters, its width was 2.13 meters, its roof height was 1.9 meters, which is one of the actual detrimental values having a wheeled vehicle is it's a little higher than it could be than if it was tracked. The total height, including its optics, was 2.2 meters, which for a reconnaissance vehicle was fairly tall. Its clearance was 0.3 meters. The armour of the Fox was very thin. After all, though, it was a recon vehicle and was designed to protect it against small arms fire, machine gun, and some light autocannon fire. I wouldn't trust this against artillery fire, shell fragments, but from the research that I found, it could protect against most artillery fragments of the time. The frontal plates were really very, very thin, only 33.5mm thick. The hull side armour was 41mm thick, and the rear was 38mm thick. Armour this thin was unfortunately a necessity to keep the vehicle as agile, fast, and light as possible. Although this isn't the only reason it needed to be made light, it had to be able to be transported by air and also float. The vehicle could cross bodies of water using a flotation screen stored on the hull roof. To ensure the required mobility and agility, this 4x4 vehicle was powered by 2 different types of engines. The earlier 185 horsepower 6-cylinder petrol Jaguar 4.2 litre J60 No. 1 Mark 100 Alpha engine, quite a tongue twister there, and later on the 190 horsepower 6-cylinder petrol Jaguar 4.2 litre XK, giving 190 horsepower at 4,500 RPM, was paired with a Daimler transmission. There were 2 types of tyres on these vehicles too. The earlier Dunlop track grips and the later military-grade Michelins. The maximum speed of the vehicle was rated at 104 km an hour, or 65 miles an hour, which for a reconnaissance vehicle, trust me, I don't think you need to go much faster than that. Although during trials, a turretless Fox could even reach speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. Its operational range was around 434 kilometres, which was actually less than what was required of British Army vehicles at the time. Most British Army vehicles during the time were expected to run to at least 500 kilometres without having to refuel. For a vehicle of its size, the Fox was quite well armed with the 30mm L21 series Saladin automatic cannon that was pretty much used between most British Army vehicles during that time and onwards even to this day with the Warrior and CVRT vehicles. This gun was generally quite popular with the British, despite the fact that the prototype version turned out to be horribly unreliable and could fire multiple types of ammunition, including the APDST, APASET and HIET rounds. The vehicle was originally supposed to be armed with the American TRW 6425 25mm automatic cannon, but the combination of an unusual caliber and alleged issues with the gun put the British off, and they decided to go with the British 30mm, rightly so. In any case, the Saladin turned out to be the right choice, and it was used on several other vehicles as mentioned before. In the Fox turret, the L21 could depress to -14 degrees and elevate to +41 degrees. The Fox carried 99 rounds for the gun. Secondary armament consisted of a 7.62mm machine gun placed in the coax. It could also be placed with a machine gun on top of the vehicle, although for the most part it was never really attached. The Fox was produced from 1972 to 1973 in mass production to around 1985. Roughly 325 of these vehicles were made, of which Britain kept 200 and pretty much everyone else got the rest. It was never really a very successful export vehicle though. More than 100 went to Nigeria and Malawi, although an unknown number remains in service to this day in certain countries that are really not registering or reporting that they're still using them. And the British Foxes were phased out of service by 1994 by the CVRT series in its full form. The phased out Fox turrets along with the phased out Scorpion hulls were actually used to produce rather peculiar hybrid vehicles, the Sabre. An estimated 136 of these vehicles were made and saw service between 1995 and 2004. An interesting prototype of the Milan ATGM equipped Fox was also built. In this case, the twin-launcher Milan compact turret was mounted on the roof, while the Saladin cannon was replaced by the 7.62mm chain gun to produce an interesting light tank destroyer vehicle. Unfortunately though, no potential buyers showed interest and there was no real requirement for tank destroyers with the British Army during that time. Another interesting modification for the Fox was the Vixen, a command and liaison utility vehicle based upon the enlarged Fox hull and with only a machine gun for armament. The vehicle, due to its rather strange design, ended up being an ergonomic nightmare and was never mass produced either. The only prototype that's still available is currently in the Bovington Tank Museum, which, my god, I will visit and do Tankfest one of these days. So the vehicle being so light, it was, for the most part, never really utilised in any kind of combat scenarios. It was placed on a couple of peacekeeping missions, and of course during the Cold War it was given a little bit of a showcase in its reconnaissance role, but the vehicle unfortunately was favoured for the CVRTs instead because the CVRTs had a lot more capability at actually going off-road. Unfortunately, in its wheeled configuration and being so tall and high centre of gravity, it produced quite a risk of falling or tipping over if travelling at high speeds. Of course, the CVRT also had the capability of doing a lot better off-road and had the added value of a little extra armour, although not a huge amount compared to the Fox either. The Fox obviously was a little bit doomed from the start, with the CVRT series being its kind of shadow of a reconnaissance vehicle that was always going to take its place anyway. I have spoken to a couple of people who have operated Foxes before and they actually thoroughly enjoyed the vehicle. One of the favourite positions apparently on the vehicle was actually being the driver. The fact of the matter is that you could kind of peek your head over the top and it's almost like you're riding a chair. There wasn't much to really see in front of you because you couldn't see down in the front of the hull, so it was almost like you're just riding on two wheels in front. It was also apparently really enjoyable having the Saladin firing the gun because every time it fired you'd be able to watch the brass rolling down the front of the hull. The vehicle's speed also was renowned for the fact that it was actually quite dangerous. A lot of people that I've spoke to in the past that have operated the Fox have actually said that it's bloody dangerous trying to stop this thing at high speed. The brakes, although very reliable, got wore down quite a bit, especially if, inexperienced drivers were not using this vehicle correctly. And I have actually spoken to someone who told me of a story that when they tried putting the brakes on in Germany when testing this vehicle, it just didn't do anything. It just ignored him putting reaction to the brakes, and he actually went into a brick wall of a German house, which is a little scary. I'm not too sure how the Germans felt about that thing coming through their front garden, but hey, that's what happens with vehicles of this kind, that if you don't maintain them properly, you can have a really bad day. The same applies to track vehicles too. Honestly, overall, I think the vehicle is quite impressive. Sadly, as I said, the CVRT series really did sort of take its spotlight for the most part, but I would love to own one. Can you imagine having one of these things driving down the road? I'd absolutely love it. And I'd also be kind of curious as to how the tyres form between the two different types, you know, the Michelin and the older style. I wonder if they kind of make too much of a difference in terms of their grip or reliability. It'd be interesting to know. The Radan cannon, though, really is what sells me on this vehicle. It has a 30mm punch. Trust me, I know what the 30mm Radan can do. Very impressive cannon for its time. Of course, now it's strongly out of service and out of date. We are replacing it with a 40mm Bofors caseless telescopic ammunition in the future, so I'm really excited to talk about that more in the future. But the vehicle performed very well for its time, and I'm kind of glad it never got to see combat because, you know, even as a reconnaissance vehicle, there's high risk of being engaged, and I think if you were to be engaged by this thing from another vehicle, then yeah, you're probably going to be end of days for the crew inside of there for sure. Thank you everyone for joining me today. I hope you learned something about the Fox and its impressive little reconnaissance abilities. If you did enjoy the video, please make sure you leave me a like and a comment. If I got anything wrong, please feel free to correct me. I know a number of you have reached out to me on a couple of videos I made and said, hey Matt, actually, you know, I'm definitely not an armored expert or, you know, military expert whatsoever. I don't preach to the choir here, but I would like you guys to definitely correct me so I can, for future reference, know that I'm making those mistakes and see if I can correct myself a little bit better for the next time. If you do want to be notified of any upcoming videos in the future, please hit the little bell by the subscribe button so you can be notified in the future of when I actually release content. It really does help, especially with YouTube causing me some major issues right now with my content being, you know, promoted and suggested, etc. Those of you who have been contributing and donating towards my Patreon, really, I cannot thank you enough. It really does mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. We are going to be looking at actually getting a new computer because I keep having major issues when producing videos of my computer crashing. I'm pretty sure either my motherboard is failing or my hard drive, so we may have to do a bit of a replacement here. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but just to keep you in the loop that those who are supporting, you are providing me a lot of help to actually keep content being created, so thank you so much. I hope you're also staying safe during this time. If you want to talk to me, you can reach me on my Facebook or on my Discord, and feel free to check all those links that I'm mentioning in the description box below. Have a wonderful day, everyone. All the best. Bye-bye.